I heard so much as Black people that everything was all downtrodden and bad. You know, 200 years ago, we were so oppressed. And then come to find out that, one of your relatives was like one of the richest Black men in America.
From Bleeding Kansas to Brown versus the Board of Education, most Kansans think they know the role of African Americans in our state's history.
Those big stories, though, are just a surface look at how Kansas and Kansans have led the way time and again.
New at 6:30 now, Cake's Pilar Pedraza takes a look at how much of Black history in Kansas has been hidden over the years.
Initial reaction was, no way. No, okay.
It was just a year ago, Dennis Sperling learned his great-grandfather, George Washington Jones, was a trailblazing attorney in western Kansas.
This man was enslaved, and he turned out to be one of the most influential attorneys in America at a time where, Black people were suffering the type of racism that is stifling.
Family lore, Sperling had lost to the mists of time. That is, until Judge Karen Arnold Berger reached out.
We just start talking, and next thing you know, I got hit with all this information about this amazing man from the past.
The first Black county attorney in Kansas, elected 3 times in a row, and a city founder, among other things.
She really just made it come to life, because this is not information that you would otherwise know about.
I read a couple articles about some Black attorneys in Kansas at the time. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. I wonder how many there were.
Since the Kansas Bar Association didn't admit African Americans until 1945, appeals court judge Karen Arnold Berger had to go looking elsewhere to dig up these hidden histories.
So I just went into newspapers.com and I typed in colored lawyer. And the world opened up.
She found some 50 different African American attorneys who practiced in Kansas from the late 1870s through about the 1920s or 30s.
These were really the first civil rights warriors in the country. And they came to Kansas for a particular reason. They believed that they would get more favorable jury verdicts and more favorable judges in a state that was founded by abolitionists.
Attorneys like fellow Judge Isaac Franklin Bradley, Francis Bradley Robinson's grandfather.
I always knew about him, but our family history is that we just didn't talk a lot about accomplishments and so forth.
Robinson ended up writing a book about her grandfather, who was one of 2 Kansans to help found the Niagara Movement.
The Niagara Movement was the forerunner to the NAACP.
It's these hidden histories Mark McCormick, the executive director of the Black Leadership Council, would like to see getting more attention in Kansas. Some of them hidden, ironically enough, only from Kansans.
If you go to Selma, Alabama right now, there is a monument to a Wichitan, the Reverend James Reeve. He was the cleric who was killed there trying to march for African American voting rights.
And then there's James Thompson, a Wichitan whose January 1942 letter to the editor of the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania Courier helped kick off the modern civil rights movement.
James Thompson wrote his letter saying, should we really fight in a war just to be half free? We need to be fighting against fascism overseas, but we need to be fighting here at home to make things better for African Americans, to fight for equality.
Double V stood for a double victory, one abroad, one at home. The only note of any Wichita connection is this World War II memorial in McAdams Park, sponsored by a local group of Double V Victorettes.
We all stand on the shoulders of others.
Eric Sexton was one of 3 Kansans to serve on the board that helped make the Smithsonian's new National Museum of African American History a reality.
One of the co-sponsors of the entire commission was, at the time, Senator Sam Brownback. He was the Senate sponsor for that.
Yet another way Kansas has influenced the national stage when it comes to knowing race relations and American history.
What we found significantly was, 1, American history is African American history.
Sexton's family has its own bit of hidden history, a football worth a whopping $2,000. Back in the 40s, his father played football for Wichita State, but
My father could not go to West Texas to play football, so the team brought the football back.
A gift to make up for him not being able to play that cost the school the $2,000 in ticket sales the Texas school owed WSU for playing an away game.
Kansas has produced leaders out of proportion to its population. I mean, it's really incredible. And then to have it hidden, it just doesn't make sense.
Why each story has faded from public memory varies, from untalkative families and a lack of official documentation with groups like the Bar Association to just plain having a bad taste for what followed.
With every good, there's some bad.
It has forced me to have to live up to my potential. And I've even shared that with my sons, you know, and my wife. Like, you know, we got to do better.
There's a lot in our history that could make us all proud, no matter who we are or what background we come from. And it really ought to be something that we emphasize more.
Which is why McCormick says Kansas could even make tourism money off of its connections to the civil rights movement if it better preserved and advertised the various locations and connections it has. The glimpses we shared with you of hidden histories in this story, just the tip of the iceberg. You can find links to those and other stories over at cake.com. Pilar Pedraza, Cake News, on your side.